make your own hero thing, which I did, except for I made it a comic book instead because I couldn't make my writing connect in an order that made sense. So yes, comic book. I don't know if I should read it. I feel like it's better if you see it because, again, like I said, when I was writing it, just writing it down, it didn't really make sense. So it's okay if I like put it up here and then just like kind of read my reasoning and stuff instead of.
Yeah, you might want to pass it around. I don't know if we can see it. You know, if you want to
Yeah.
pass it around.
Not really. It's about 12 pages and I'm still adding on because it's not completely complete yet, but I got it to a point where it's kind of complete. And then here's the first page. It's
This
just
is like a superhero comic?
Yes.
All right.
So, this is Erin. She is the hero in my story. Yeah. I've also got Sean, but he's not as big of a deal. He's kind of not really a big deal in this particular story because it's focused on her. And I chose to do this because of convenience. My friends tried to, well, they succeeded in roping me into writing an RP with them about college-age superheroes. And I figured that if I used this for my project, it would motivate me to do the RP because I have absolutely no confidence in my writing, especially not creative writing. So I also kind of found myself struggling with writing about my own college experience as a hero journey because I don't really see myself as a hero and I don't really know who I am yet, to be perfectly honest. And I was changing so fast that everything that I wrote down after like a day seemed wrong and it just didn't make any sense to me. So I tried to make an ideal character that more or less stuck to her resolve and knew what she wanted to do with her life. I didn't do a group project, but I did help with the Doctor Who cover art, which I have one. Yeah. But I wanted to work on this alone because I figured that it would only come out right if it was in my own words and if I drew it out. Because I was going to just write it, but I couldn't. It just wasn't working. So yeah, this is just kind of a presentation of the comic that I've got so far, the character, and what it is. I didn't base my character off of anybody in particular. I tried to make her as original as possible, but there's a lot of Mary Suing going on there. And if you don't know what Mary Suing is, it's when the author writes herself into the story, more or less, not very subtly. But she actually turned out to be very different, so I don't know if I can say that anymore. Okay, so there's Erin. She's the main character. She has a dream of becoming a successful photojournalist. She's a freshman in college in UMBC, which is not UMBC. And she is in the pilot program for undergraduate superhumans. And she didn't realize that she had superpowers until she was in her senior year of high school. And it made life a little awkward for her because she lives in a world where most people have superpowers. And you usually get them if, people in your family have them. Everyone always gets them by about the age of 13, so she was always kind of the odd one out. So people would say that she either didn't have powers or that her powers were so powerful that they had to be repressed, but either way it made her kind of an outcast among her peers. So she never really got along with them. She turns out to be a shapeshifter, but since there are no other shapeshifters in her region, she can't really control her power, and it only lasts for a few minutes, so she doesn't feel like it's very useful for anything at all. So she just contents herself with taking tree selfies, because what can you do when you're a shapeshifter and you like taking pictures? So, in this story, Erin is going to be put to the ultimate test because she overhears a bomb plot. It's more of a plot by some exchange students who she thinks are from the Hero University in Canada, but are actually from the evil university in Quebec, and I can't pronounce their names, but yeah.
Well, you made up a name you can't pronounce?
Yeah, no, I didn't make it up. I did Google Translate.
Oh.
So yeah, what is it?
What is it?
Basically, the names are Demigods Academy, and that's the Hero University in Quebec, and then there's the Villainous University of Quebec.
Villainous?
Yes, it's like Crapula.
Do you have it on paper?
I do have it on paper. You can read French. Yeah, that right there.
popular du Québec.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, let me see. You guys want to hear about the other characters? There are only 4 of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I already told you about Erin. Oh, I never finished with her. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, she has a choice. She can either lay low and not say anything and hope that the authorities catch on, or she can gather evidence to present to the authorities in order to actually get these guys arrested. Because in this universe, they ask questions first and arrest later, as opposed to the other way around like they do here. So if you don't have proof, then you get in big trouble, because, yeah. All right, so Sean is Erin's best friend, and he is a matter manipulator. Ooh, he can change things. It's awesome. It's kind of like an alchemist, actually. He's very much like an alchemist. He's more of Erin's push in the right direction in this comic, but he's not usually as decisive as Erin is. So they somewhat switch personalities in this sense. He's an art major and he's kind of flighty, but when it comes to emergency situations, he can be could be a very good leader. He's very good under stress. There's Dominic. Something. I don't even know if that's French, honestly. It just looked good. Javier, something with a J. Xavier, yes. It is French. And he came to UMBC under the guise of being an exchange student from the Hero University in Canada. But Erin discovers that he's actually from the Supervillain Academy, and he plans to exert his revenge over the school because they rejected his application. So he's going to blow up everything and everybody in it. He's kind of a jerk. He's kind of a sociopath.
Seems like a reasonable.
He's extremely stereotypical, and he doesn't care about anybody but himself. And he has a henchman named Stallone, who is originally from Cameroon, which has French and English going on in the country, you know. So he transferred to, I'm just going to call it CDQ. He transfers to CDQ on a football scholarship, not an American football, European football, because that's how they do things outside of America. And that's where he met Dominic. And unfortunately, Stallone is not very bright, which makes it very easy for Dominic to manipulate him. But just because he's not the smartest doesn't mean that he enjoys the way that Dominic treats him. And he's just waiting for the day when Dominic messes up so he can laugh at him and quit. But mostly so he can laugh at him. Alright, then in the body of the creative work, that is my comic right there. That's the body. If you're having trouble reading the handwriting, I'm very sorry. I'm working on that. I'm going over it in pen and making the letters letter-ish. I've got whatever this sign-up sheet. I'm sorry. This is a sign-up sheet. You use it when you're making a character. They're way easier to make than the actual story themselves, especially when you're doing it alone. So if you want to read that, you can after this is over. Alright. So, from creating Erin, I realized that a hero doesn't have to be spectacular. She thinks that her power is useless because it's obscure and she doesn't have any training in it. She just doesn't see any way that she can move forward from where she is. So she's kind of contented herself with being average. And she's been happy that way. So she's never actually been challenged as far as putting herself out there goes, or actually taking a chance with what she does have. But I also learned that heroes don't really see their potential until the very end, after everything's said and done. And she didn't see hers until after the entire situation had passed. I also learned that anyone can be a hero, even if they don't want to be. As a matter of fact, it's usually if you don't want to be, you end up somehow being the hero or the main character in someone's story that they had to write for class. She wasn't actually supposed to be the hero first. It was supposed to be Sean, but you know. It's what you do with the talents and gifts that you do have that counts, and not what you think that you need to actually make those things come to fruition. Creating Erin was difficult for me because it made me realize that while I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life, I was kind of too scared to do anything. I could be any of the things I wanted to be. I could be a missionary or a translator or an artist or anything. I really could, but I don't want to fail. And that's kind of the hard part. So I'm currently in the process of trying to talk myself out of that. But yeah, if Aaron had stayed afraid instead of summoning the courage to gather the evidence of the threat, everyone around her would have died. So, not saying that you guys are going to die, because it's not that serious. It really isn't. It's a me thing. But, wow, yeah.
So, just a comment about procedure. You just saw two very different approaches. They're both fine. Alejandro, you were asking, can we summarize? Ruma performed most of her story and kind of skipped over some parts. And you mainly summarized and gave us context and told us about the story, because the story's in the comic.
Yeah, it's
and
kinda
gave us a
hard to
little
recall,
reflection.
but-
It's up to you. Whatever you want to share with the class. I thought both approaches were great. So how about some questions, comments?
I saw in the comic she's like dying at the end. Is that?
Spoilers?
I don't have the comic.
It's about
Party foul, man.
To be completely honest, I was very iffy about having her live. I really wanted her to die in the end. I
Okay.
realized that if she died in the end, I couldn't
However,
really...
that it's better.
Yeah.
Readers like it more. Well, they hate it more, but they'll remember it more.
Well, the way that the story is actually working right now is you can read it in a loop. She is having a dream about what happened. So it's what happened, except she's alive. She's in the hospital in the beginning of the story, but initially that was at the end of the story. I wrote all of this out before I actually put it in comic form, and when I gave it to my friends to read, they were like, "You're not going to turn this in, are you? I don't understand what's going on." So, yeah.
But here's the thing about wanting a character to die. When you really get into these stories, characters take on a life of their own, and they maybe refuse to die, or the plot takes twists you couldn't have expected as an author.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also true.
Or you do what
She
all
grew on me
authors
a
do and
little.
kill off your favorite characters anyway.
And then bring it back to life.
Yeah.
Only if you're lucky.
Exactly.
Yeah. I really loved your story. I think it's a great integration and metaphor for the college process, coming and finding yourself and really discovering who you are. I also, yeah, apparently sporting Evil Friends speakers. I think that was a great touch. We all know they're up to something. And, I really wanted to compliment you on your insight that changing it from a prose format to a visual format would improve the story. And I wanted to ask what your do you have any like further impetus for that? Do you think better visually, or were you just like, oh, maybe people can understand it if they have pictures?
Yes, that is a funny thing. That's a very good question. I think well visually and linguistically. However, when it comes to creative writing, if it's not a poem, I can't do it with just words. I have to draw it out. And I was kind of hesitant at first to draw it out because it's like, ugh, my drawing sucks.
Your drawing is amazing.
I
I'm looking at it right now. I'm like,
I draw stick
crap.
figures, that's it.
It's,
I can't do that.
it's good enough for what I can do,
Oh,
but
shut
it's
up.
nowhere near the
Do you want me to smack you?
But yeah,
Extreme humility.
when I wrote it out, I knew what I had was good, and I knew that it would work. Because I gave it to a couple friends, and they critiqued it for me, and they said the story was good, but it was too choppy, and it focused more on action and not so much on what the character felt. And I couldn't write how the character felt because I thought it was obvious to me because I was seeing it in my head. And when I realized that I was seeing it in my head, the only problem was I just had to draw it out, and I had to do it in 7 hours. So I did it. No sleep.
think that was a great move. Good job.
All right.